Are you trying to match the footage from 2 or more underwater cameras to look the same, but are not really happy with the result that you get in your editing software? Don't worry, stick around and I'll show you how you can match different footage from different cameras very simply in Final Cut Pro 10. Coming up. Hi and welcome back to the Underwater Filmmaking School and yet another Final Cut Pro 10 tutorial. Now, how many of you have spent hours trying to match underwater video clips from different cameras so that they look kind of the same and it is not very obvious that they were taken with different cameras? Now, there is a very simple way of how you can achieve that in Final Cut Pro 10, and that's what we'll look at today. Let's dive right into Final Cut Pro 10 and I'll show you how it's done. Alright, welcome to Final Cut Pro 10 guys. I've got 3 clips prepared for you today. The first one here is of this sweet lip. The second one here is from this hawksbill turtle with my buddy in the background watching it, and the last one is of a big potato cod. Now, all these 3 clips come from different cameras. The first one, the sweet lip, that was taken with the Osmo Action, and it was taken in the D Cinelike or Cinelike D profile, I think it's called. Then the second clip here, that was taken with my GH5 in a natural profile with -5 on saturation and on contrast. And this last one here was taken with the Paralens Dive Camera Plus, and it was taken using its DCC, its dynamic color correction that the Paralens offers. So, as you can see, the first one here, the Osmo Action and the Paralens, they don't look too different because they're both flat profiles. They kind of look sort of the same, but what I can see, looking especially in the background, the bluish color of the background, you can see that this one has more of a proper blue, deep blue color, and this one here, the Osmo, has more of like goes more into the cyan section, so it's got a bit of a tint towards the cyan side, so we have to do a little bit of tweaking and adjustment there, and obviously this one is completely off. It looks very green and we'll have to do quite a bit of work to get this one looking kind of the same like the other two, but the goal is to make this a little sequence and color correct the footage so that it's not very obvious that it's been taken with different cameras. Let's start with the first one here with our sweet lip, and first of all we want to bring up our scopes by pressing Command 7, and once they're up here we have a lot more information on the footage that we're working with and looking at. So we've got our Luma. This is what I work with at the beginning, because first of all I want to make sure that I properly distribute the exposure, the highlights, the shadows and the midtones. So I'll bring up my color tab, and because this is a flat profile, most of the color information is in the center there. So what we'll do, we'll take our shadows and just pull them down, pull them down till they reach nearly the 0 mark here. So you can see these little bits here nearly reach the 0 mark, and now we want to bring up the highlights until the highest point there nearly reaches the 100 mark, because this is the information that is visible, anything between 100 and 0. So this looks already quite nice. What I personally would do here is bring up the midtones just a little bit and put a little more saturation into the entire image by just increasing the saturation bar here on the master wheel. Alright, that looks good. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So this is what it looked before, and this is what it looks now after the color correction. So let's go to the second one. This is our second one with the turtle coming behind the rock and then my buddy following it as he is watching the turtle going up to the surface. So pretty much the same thing here. Our Luma tab, you can see that it's a flat profile. Most of the information is around the center. So same thing again, we'll grab the shadow wheel and bring it down. Then we'll take the highlight wheel and bring it up. And I wouldn't really do much with the midtones, maybe just a little down. And then we'll increase the saturation. Now we can go back and forth between the two clips. Now if we look at the first one, we can see here in the vector scope how much saturated this clip is. Now the further these markings go towards the outside of the ring, the more saturated the image is. So comparing those two images, you can see that this one here, our sweet lip, is more saturated than our turtle, which is obvious because I put more saturation into the sweet lip. So we'll do a little bit more saturation on the turtle there as well. And now it is fairly similar, but what we can see is switching between those two, if you look at the vector scope, is that they have a different color tint. They go into a different color direction. This one here, as I said before, the sweet lip goes more into a cyan color space, and this one here, our turtle, is more towards the bluish side. And you can see that very clearly by looking at the background. So what we want to do, I personally like the bluish background better, so I'm gonna try to match my sweet lip here to the turtle shot. I'm gonna try to make the background bluer here. So we'll select this clip, and then we'll go over to the hue and saturation curves on our color tab. And once we're in here, we've got the little tool here on the top where it says hue versus hue, and we'll just pick this blue color that we want to change. And what we're doing now by picking this, we're actually isolating this one color, and now we can work with just that color, and we can change just that color. So we can do really crazy stuff here. Like we can make this go completely green if we want, which can be somehow artistically interesting, but that's not what we're trying to do. We actually can pull it even to the orange or red if you want, but we want to try to make it more blue. Let's just put this back. Okay, start again, select the color that we want to change, and once we've done that, we can just pull it towards the blue side, just down a little bit. And if you look at the vector scope here, have a look at this while I'm changing here. You can see how the color shifts. So obviously we want to try to match it somehow to our turtle clip. And if this is like a bit of a trial and error. It's close. It's close. Maybe just a tiny little bit more. Okay. This is pretty good. This now looks pretty much like it's been taken at the same spot. This is not even the same dive site, but it looks like it was taken at the same dive site. Background looks pretty much the same. The foreground looks the same. So this is actually, yeah, pretty happy with this match. So let's go over to the next one, and the next one is going to be really challenging. That's our potato cod here, and because this has been taken with the para lens and it's done some crazy stuff with its dynamic color correction, this is going to be interesting. So let's select the frame and let's work with the shadows, midtones and the highlights. As you can see, this is not such a flat profile here. The colors are much more distributed already. So what we need to do is here bring down the highlights a little bit because they're clipping there over the 100 mark. And then we can bring down the shadows a little bit, probably bring up the midtones. All right, and now we've adjusted it a little bit, got a bit more contrast in there, but obviously it's still completely different to what we've got here. Now, because the entire image here is kind of greenish and we can't really just isolate the color and work with that, because the rest of the image would just not look right if we do that. We need to work with the entire image. So the best way to do this is by using your master wheel here. And if we look at the vector scope, you can see where the colors lie within the color space, and you can also see where it is on the other ones. The other ones match up pretty nicely. So it's somewhere between cyan and blue, and here we are, well, kind of somewhere between yellow and cyan, really. So grabbing our master wheel, pulling it towards sort of magenta and blue, and this is actually not too bad. Looking at the image there, it's still green, but it's a lot better. Now what we can do, this section here, it's sort of the highlight section. You can see this by looking at either the Luma scope or even the RGB parade. This section here represents the section on the right hand side, which is the highlight section of the image. So using the highlight wheel, we can then say, or try to manipulate the highlights to go more into blue by pushing this. We just got to be careful not to push it too much into the blue, because otherwise it's gonna go into magenta a little bit. But somewhere around here, and maybe also saturate that part a little bit more, so we get a little more saturation in there. It's not too bad. Maybe also try to put a little bit more blue into the shadows. Saturate them just a tiny bit. Well, you can see it's not by no means perfect, by no means. I mean, you can clearly see that it's a different color, but it's much closer to what we had before. If we look at, this is what we had before, this is what we have now. So we can still go into the hue and saturation curves, and maybe we can just bring down the Luma here a little bit, make it a little darker by selecting hue versus Luma, and just trying to make this a little darker so it's not too bad. But we're still in kind of a cyany color there. Maybe if we try, we can make it a little more blue. That's what I thought. As soon as I start pulling it down to the blue, it just falls apart, because the parallel image is not very good for grading, really. So I can't really do too crazy things. But okay, it's definitely not okay. It's got too much of a magenta tint in the blue section here now, but it's definitely better than what we had before. If we look at, this is what we, well, sorry, let's have a check all of them off. This is what we had at the beginning. This is what we have now. So it's come a lot closer. It's not perfect. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's difficult to be a magician in these things, but you can do a lot by just being patient and trying out a few things here and there. But these two we could match very well, and with the parallel one we did as good as we were able to, and I think we did okay. It's not perfect, but if it's just a short sequence, people might not even notice that it has a little tint in it. And there you go, that's a simple way of color matching different shots from different cameras, so that people don't necessarily realize that you use different cameras, that this is maybe not the same dive site, and that it might not even have been taken during the same day. So there you have it. Now it's your turn. Grab a couple of clips from different cameras and see if you can color match them using this method. This method, by the way, also works in Adobe Premiere Pro and also in DaVinci Resolve. They both got the same tools for color correction in them. I've just used Final Cut Pro 10 because this is my go-to editing and color correcting software that I use. Well, that wasn't too difficult, was it? And with a little bit of practice, I bet that you can get that done fairly quickly and easily. Thank you very much for watching again today, and I hope this video was useful to you and you got something out of it. And if that's the case, please, as always, do hit that like button and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, so you're not missing out on any future content like tutorials, tips and tricks and so on that will be published here on a regular basis. Thanks again for your time, and I will see you in the next one.